The notion that the satanic New World Order is seeking to control humanity through the narrative of global warming has been a topic of debate and speculation among conspiracy theorists. According to this theory, a group of powerful and secretive individuals, often referred to as the elite, are manipulating the global warming agenda to achieve their ultimate goal of establishing a one-world government. This supposed New World Order, driven by satanic principles, aims to enslave humanity and impose a totalitarian regime. Proponents of this theory argue that the climate change narrative is being used as a tool to frighten people into submission, thereby allowing the elite to implement their agenda of control and domination. They claim that the science behind global warming is flawed, exaggerated, or even fabricated, and that the true purpose of the climate change narrative is to create a sense of urgency and panic, which can be leveraged to justify drastic measures to control populations and restrict individual freedoms. One of the key arguments put forward by proponents of this theory is that the push for a global response to climate change is being driven by a desire to create a one-world government which would have the power to impose its will on all nations and peoples. They argue that the United Nations, the European Union, and other international organizations are being used as vehicles to advance this agenda, and that the climate change narrative is being used to justify the erosion of national sovereignty and the imposition of global governance. Another argument put forward by proponents of this theory is that the climate change agenda is being used to justify the imposition of draconian measures to control and restrict individual freedoms. For example, they argue that the push for a low-carbon economy and the imposition of carbon taxes are being used to strangle economic growth and individual prosperity, thereby creating a sense of dependence on the state. They also argue that the promotion of sustainable development and green policies is being used to justify the confiscation of private property, the suppression of individual rights, and the imposition of a totalitarian regime. However, it is essential to approach this theory with a critical and nuanced perspective. While it is true that there are powerful and secretive individuals and organizations that seek to shape global policy and impose their will on humanity, the notion that a satanic New World Order is driving the climate change agenda is a simplistic and flawed narrative. The reality is that the science behind global warming is well established, and the overwhelming consensus among climate scientists is that human activities, particularly the emission of greenhouse gases, are significantly contributing to the warming of the planet. Moreover, the push for a global response to climate change is driven by a genuine concern for the well-being of humanity and the planet, rather than a sinister plot to impose a totalitarian regime. The impacts of climate change, from rising sea levels to more frequent and intense natural disasters, pose a significant threat to human security, economic stability, and environmental sustainability. The international community is coming together to address this challenge, not because of a satanic conspiracy, but because of a shared recognition of the need for collective action to mitigate the effects of climate change. In conclusion, while the idea of a satanic New World Order seeking to control humanity through the narrative of global warming may capture the imagination of some, it is essential to approach this theory with a critical and nuanced perspective. The science behind global warming is well established, and the push for a global response to climate change is driven by a genuine concern for human well-being and environmental sustainability. Rather than succumbing to conspiracy theories, we should focus on promoting a fact-based discourse and working together to address the significant challenges posed by climate change.